welcome to the fifth chapter of Her Digital Story. It's heartening to see such a vibrant group join us this evening, including our speakers. Today's session is centered around the theme Mastering the Data Journey, Quality Governance, and Lineage for Informed Decision Making. This event is a part of ongoing series designed to foster a robust and supportive community focused on learning, sharing, and empowering women in technology. Through these gatherings, we aim to build connections, share knowledge, and inspire one another, and ultimately strengthen our collective capabilities and impact in the tech industry. As we begin today's proceeding, I request Cigniti's very first woman employee and who is currently the President of Corporate Services, Urmila Markili, to welcome our speakers. Urmila ma'am, please. Ma'am, to welcome our first speaker, Shravanti Lanka. Please have a round of applause, everyone. Welcome, Shravanti. Welcome, Shruti. And again, Urmila ma'am, please. Ma'am. And our own Harika. Thank you. Moving on, to unveil more about the concept of her digital story, I would like to invite the brand custodian of Cigniti, who has played a key role in shaping our brand identity and values. Please welcome Chief Marketing Officer Sairam Vedam.
I promise I'm going to talk for only 3 minutes because some of the folks here know that I do endless chatter. So let's, this is the 5th edition of what we believe a very prized brand asset that we've created. This is a community of true spirited celebration of innovation and excellence in engineering by everyone. And I think the ethos of Cigniti allows us to sort of proudly disclose, right? So back in 2012, we were just hardly about 150 people. We named our first conference room as Grace Hopper. Facebook did not yet do the Women in Engineering celebrations at that point of time. I think that's the value system that we've always believed in. There's another meeting room that I named called Ada Lovelace, technically the first mathematical engineer to coin the word bug, because we are in the world of testing. And time provided, if you could walk over to our 5th floor, the latest engineering center. So we have a STEM wall where we've profiled arguably the 4 best women engineering thought leaders that we think this century has seen. So with that as a celebrative background, I welcome both of you once again, and you are in absolute safe hands with Harika around. But this is an initiative that we inherited from a company that we acquired called Round Square, who's part of our proud family now. When we did the first edition, we were not really sure whether this will take a form of a community, but thanks to the dedication of our teams all over here and the astounding support that we receive from our support teams, this has grown in stature and strength. And while, the rain seems to have played a little spoiled sport. More than the rain, I believe it's the semi-finals match where people are just running around, including me. Make sure my Disney Hotstar is up and running. But I think this is going to be a very, very important topic. I think over the last 4 editions, we've covered AI, we've covered generative AI, and a whole bunch of stuff. So when I was looking for speakers for this time around, while I got to know that you've been invited and you've accepted, thank you. Then I happen to also know Shravanti Garu, whom I closely work with, Haisia. And yesterday I just want to share this. Yesterday I was at the IT Secretary's office, Chief Minister's office. So we had a topic around global competency centers in Hyderabad. I just told sir, I wish if you could come to our office, you will see 2 of the largest GCC leaders visiting our office. And between HSBC and S&P, we know how much of financial crunching that happens world over. So it's a proud moment for having leaders like all of you. And these insights that you would share today, I think will go a long way. And this community, what you see is just a sample, right? Because we have a social community following, and the videos get over on the YouTube, and then this reaches. So in my opinion, this is a true force multiplier. With that said, yeah, so get going, and all the best, and I hope to have many editions. And what we would also like to do is we are trying to come out with a few more sub themes of it in terms of virtual podcasts and things that can actually extend the her digital story. There are some industry analysts that have taken note of this. So there are few more initiatives that are actually coming. So while you get back, we would request you to spread a word about this community in your organizations, so that we can have more innovation, more learning, which is what the mantra is all about. And of course, all things around excellence in engineering and some of your pragmatic insights that you have got to share. So fantastic. And since we are talking a lot about the data, I found something interesting, which has got nothing to do with technology. It seems Rohit Sharma and Josh Butler have exactly identical stats, 159.16 strike rate, and they have scored 191 runs in the same ball in the World Cup so far. So it's going to be a close game. Data plays interesting role everywhere. That's also data for me. So, yeah, all right. So thank you so much, and get going. Yeah. Welcome once again.
Thank you, Sairam, for sharing with us the purpose behind the initiative and how brand Cigniti is committed to this wonderful mission. Moving forward, we'll see a video. Can you play?
Sheryl Sandberg says, "No industry or country can reach its full potential until women reach their full potential." This is especially true of science and technology, where women with a surplus of talent still face a deficit of opportunity. Technology has always been shaped by women. From the early days of computing, when women made up a significant portion of the workforce, to the present, where women continue to push the boundaries of what is possible. Whether you dig into history or look around today, the industry is only wealthier with women. herDIGITALstory is a community of practice where women passionate about emerging technologies can come together to connect, collaborate, and grow. Our mission is to inspire and empower women to pursue their passions and become leaders in fields like AI, ML, data, and blockchain. This community aims to be a powerful force that drives conversations forward with stories. We will unlock new perspectives and insights to help us better understand the challenges and opportunities. By empowering and amplifying the voices of women in tech, we can drive meaningful change and inspire the next generation of innovators as we uncover new solutions that can transform the world around us. Come together and harness the power of this community to create a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable tech industry, to use our voices and our stories to challenge the status quo, push the boundaries of what is possible, and shape the future of technology for the better. Join us and share your digital story.
Thanks, everyone. We now get to know each other better. So I welcome Shravanti for the first session. She's the Senior Director, Site Head, Hyderabad Operations at S&P Global. Right? She comes with a 22-year experience, and her experience lies mainly, if I could bucket them, as data analysts would, right, in building high-performance teams and definitely building cutting-edge products, right? So I'm looking forward to hearing more from her. She's a proud alum of NYU and ISB, something that we share, and looking forward to hearing from you. I'll leave the floor open.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harika. All right. I actually wanted to be very open conversation. I started my career in technology, so I'm very passionate about it. The last 20 of the 22 years, 20 has been in tech, pure tech, as a developer, as a manager, or managing development teams, and then the products. Moving into now the data world, where I was on the other side complaining about why are these guys, data teams complaining, about little bugs or time, if you know what I mean. They would come back. For us, it's all about time and speed and quality. So they would go measure time in milliseconds. And I was like, millisecond, you won't even realize, by the time it refreshes, right? You blink of, not even a blink of a second. But they would not agree from that stage. But then they would count and say times 5,000 people, and that's like a day or something, like depending on if we introduce a bug. From that stage, so now I'm on this side of the team where I'm representing data. I'm site lead, but also take care of a lot of our internal programs. So I can see the team's concerns now, why they ask for that. I also count our hours productivity now, so I go complain to the tech teams that it is important for us to fix that bug because it counts. Yeah, of those 22 years, S&P, if you guys know, it's a data company, technology-driven data company, where speed and quality is important, and that's where we provide our essential intelligence to our clients, right? It's very important. There are scenarios where even if a little thing goes bad, we get a lot of complaints, especially during the earnings season. I also think because of that, we've stayed afloat for the last 150 years, right? Or plus, 150 plus years. I think it started out as a data company, crunching the numbers, doing it as a newsletters or even printed stuff, using the railroads to transport, to where we are now. I think over the last 150 years, it went through a lot of transformation. Now we are going through another transformation where, whatever we used to take, we have about 5,000 plus. I think we are close to 6,000 analysts who just crunch the numbers every day. And we are trying to automate a lot, not to remove people, of course. We want to expand our data sets. There's a lot coming up, right? There's a lot of emerging markets. There's quite a bit to be done. Private markets is huge. I know everybody wants to invest, not just the public markets, but we want to see those little ones which will become, next big thing that we all want. Investors are looking to invest, and they need that data, and that's a big market, right? That's where we are trying to see. We automate the regular stuff, and then we go into these new markets where people can do a lot of research and enhance our products. Right now, if you see, everything goes into the, a lot of customers, when they look at us, they ask us, do you have India data? So far, we've been very, very focused on US markets, but now people ask for India markets, China, you name it, every country, in addition to US, of course. Having said that, I think, when we look at the quality side, there is an aspect. About couple, I would say actually 2015 is when we bought over a company called SNL. They had this practice of giving $50 to the clients if they found a bug in the data on our platforms. So when we acquired them, S&P said, what the hell, we'll also adopt it, right? We'll take the challenge, we'll see where, we've budgeted more money, but that actually changed a lot of our mindsets. People were like, how can you find, it actually impacted in both sides, both technology and data folks. Like, how can you find fault in my data is that one aspect. And then tech guys would go, that's, like if you see a data coming in late, like the earnings statement went out, and if it didn't reflect, they would immediately call and say your data is wrong. But then, that actually inspired a lot of people to innovate and show how our data is going up, right? The quality aspect. We did pay initially a lot, but over the years, I think right now we are a lot less. We allocate budget, but every year on year it gets reduced. 5%, 10%. Now we are targeting every year. Next year we'll get 5% less money to give. So that means there's a lot of pressure to improve the quality. So that actually established a big quality component in whatever we do. You're looking, before we release, there's lot of effort that goes into ensuring the data is delivered quality deliveries, including the technology guys, right? There's a big tech component when they're building. They have yeah, it is evolving. If you do we have any QA folks in here? QA quality engineers. I know your lives are changing a lot. I've seen yesterday we had an ISB event. And because of the the topic was Gen AI, and we left it very broad, and how the algorithms and the new frameworks are coming up, and there were a lot of QAs who came up and said, how do I measure quality, right? Because you do the, one time it comes as one result, and then the other time. Both are correct, but it's not the exact same thing when you use Gen AI. So they were asking a lot of questions. How is my job evolving? How do I look at quality engineering as a process? But I think a lot, even within us, in our organization, we've evolved that quite a bit. The definition has changed, but quality is basic, foundational stuff. And the way we are looking, then we have layers of quality check, right? There was a time, I'll go back into the history, when I joined here in the data world here, not when I was building tools for data, every time a client complained, we would put a check on top, to a point where we had like 20,000 checks for ridiculous thing. Client comes back with a question, that becomes a check. We were not thinking how it is impacting the performance, right? And eventually then we realized, oh, these 25,000 checks were causing only a percentage of cases these are all edge cases, but then you're implementing it for regular, every use case would go through. So that's again another transformation that we looked at and said, okay, we don't have to check everything. As long as we are good with 80%, and then we do sample checks, and that sample has evolved over years, right? That team has looked at frameworks and said, what is it that we are most passionate about, right? We don't want, when S&P Global does its annual report, we don't want our stuff to go late. We want it to go right away. Or even when there are companies which people look for. So we did a lot of analysis and said, quality is very important, but where do we draw the line, right? That's where the governance part came in. And then we have this QA quality team in technology and also in data. They look at all these quality checks, what is important, and then they put some frameworks and said, what is the right amount of sample that we should take? And how we're looking at even when we publish, when we categorize saying clients, we pay $50 for if you catch something, but we have started saying, okay, these are the most important parts, right? You don't want to make mistakes in the fundamentals, which is your income statement, balance sheet. But there are some things that nobody cares for, like what is the sales of, I'm just taking a random example, but iPhone in Taiwan or like South Africa, sorry. South Africa and Johannesburg, you can go up till that level, but I don't want to care for that data quality, because nobody, like when you look at the analytics, the number of hits is like 1% versus when you look at iPhone sales, that's where the 100% hit, 99% of the hits are. So we started reviewing, looking at quality in different ways, and then we prepared some frameworks which actually helped us save costs, even when we are looking. So we are emphasizing where people are looking at. That's where the data analytics came in. yeah, that's how the company, I feel the companies afloat for the last 150 years, because they've been looking at how quality is important. I think that's what end of the day everyone cares, right? I don't want to go buy phone or something which works for a day. So I think that's quality is really really important, and I know data has changed with all the Yesterday, one more thing that I learned or picked up is, um, there's so many algorithms out there. Which one should I use, or there's so many emerging technologies. What should I learn, or should I be looking at this algorithm? Should I be looking at Web 3.0 in a different way? Or, there were a lot of questions on which technology to pick. And then the key point that came out was, don't look at the technologies, look at the problems. Once you understand your problem, the solution can be anything. You can build on it, right? So understanding the problem is the key. And then once you understand, you create the solutions, and then the quality, of course, comes into picture. That's a big, big thing. Yeah, I don't know what else. Yes.
So I think I gleaned some insights from what you were talking about. Yeah? Okay. So when you talked about a lot of analysts being data crunchers, right? I think one of the challenges that we've seen is that those who actually are crunching the data are not necessarily the domain subject matter experts, right? I don't know if that's the case. But then my question is around, how do you enable them? How do you empower them so that they are able to ensure quality? Because true quality is only when you truly understand the data. It's not just about crunching the numbers, right? So how is it in your experience, in your teams, how have you enabled them?
So we have both cases, right? We recently celebrated 30 years in operations in Hyderabad. I have 20 plus year employees who are data experts. When we hired initially, when we started operations here, we were looking at data, like data teams, like people who understand commerce background is what we were picking up. They understand data to the core. They feel threatened right now, if I may say, right? They're like, oh my God, there's so much of technology is coming up, will I lose my job? The one thing that we keep telling them is we need people like you who understand the data. And then what we are subtly or trying to introduce is we have our own internal learning platforms where people are learning. We just expose them, right? We do a quick 2-minute demo. And that is so powerful. Like in the town hall today, we did a demo of low code, no code, which is nothing major, right? One of the EOS team, which is our secretarial, office managers. That person did an app which basically just takes if I have a request, I need a meeting, I just email him, and it goes into mailbox, and it just creates a task for somebody to pick up. Any category of task, right? It's just so automated. It's just based on the Power BI apps, and he just built that just for his productivity, right? Nobody. He was not waiting for any technologist to come and help him build that tool. It's the necessity. What we are trying to do is showcase such inspiring stories where people are just building little things and just making a difference. There was another one I was doing, we do an annual survey of employees, right? People just write a lot of comments. What I've done is I just said, I looked at everything. We have an internal Gen AI. It's basically built on top of the 3.5 version. So I just uploaded the documents, all the feedback, came up with certain themes and said, this is how you summarize. Did a little demo in our leadership and said, in your team, these are the 5 things people are talking about. And that actually inspired someone in the team to go back and say, oh, why am I reading this 100-page annual report? I can just upload it, and it throws me a description. Because we look at the annual reports and say, this is a short description of the company, this is a long description of the company. Basically, short description is about 100 words or 200 words, which says, okay, Google has blah, 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 things to do, services, and it's just quick description. In the long description, it says these are its competitors, these are these are the segments it operates in. But that, I know this, that's something that they picked up and built a little tool out of it. Earlier, we had only for the public companies, even that, only the barely 6,000 companies we had data for, that long description. Now they looked at it and said they started building POCs around it, and now we're expanding the coverage to all public companies. Whether it's needed, and we'll have to evaluate the cost of it. Obviously, your technologies probably know, it is okay. So far, in the 100 years or last 50 years, nobody asked us for the long description for every company. We're just doing it, but that also means there is a cost. The point is, people loved it, right? They were experimenting. We didn't ask them to do it. We were just showcasing some demos, and they picked up and started learning. That's the empowerment. We don't have to tell people to change and say, go read and let's do something. By showing these inspiring stories, we were able to ease a little bit, not the whole thing. I think all of us are scared in our own ways, but I think it just helps to show inspiring stories and say, this is how you can learn and adapt to the changing times. Use it to your advantage, right? That's the thing that I wanted to.
Got it. Thanks. I think you subtly answered the question of how Gen AI is changing the landscape in general, right? But is there some data product that you would like to talk about where you've used some of the latest AI ML methodologies or models, right, which has basically transformed the way we've traditionally worked with data? And it could be at any stage of the data lifecycle, right? Not necessarily governance, not necessarily quality, but anything that you would like to talk about.
Okay, I see Gen AI, or actually, this is what I've been learning attending the conferences and all. I put it in two ways. Is it productivity gain for me, right, individually? What can I do to all the examples that I gave earlier where it helps me to be more productive? Very internal focused, and there's the revenue generating side of it, right? That's where we are trying to experiment, see what actually customers want to pay. We are still, anything that we do, it's coming down to, we are like, oh wow, this is great. But when we start doing it, it becomes a productivity thing. We are still in the process. There are some things that we think people would love to pay for it. We'll have to see when it comes out. But it's like, for example, I don't know if I can say it, but I'll say it. In our commodity markets, we do benchmarks for commodity markets. So every day there's a market on close. People say, I bought this for this, and we generate headlines and push it out. The turnaround time is in milliseconds. We're trying to see how fast or we can make the sentences can go wrong. It's because it's manual. As in it's automated, but it's also a little bit manual. So the point is, it can enhance it, right? We are just trying. There's a lot of projects within our company where they're trying to see how we can make revenue-generating products. It's still in progress. We haven't cracked it, but if you guys did, definitely all ears to listen and pick up ideas.
Can I ask you one last question?
Yes.
Before I move to the next? So I think the example you gave about the data teams and the tech teams, right? And they constantly had, did you get the quality right or did I get the quality right? I think that's very commonplace, right? So because you've built high-performing teams in your organizations, I was just curious, how is it that you get, especially the product and the tech teams especially, right, to collaborate? Because as you can see, there's stake on both sides of the table. What is it that worked for them, whether it is a process, whether it is a tool, or it could be, just a mechanism or a culture?
Over the years, one thing I've seen is when you understand the big picture, where it all fits in, right? And then people start feeling, oh, that's what I'm doing. It's not the little task that I'm doing, but when you give the big picture, I've seen that help me. While I was really young in my career, one of the managers did that to me regularly. He said, you're not doing this task, but you're actually building this, which is how clients use it. And then that helps all of us to come together. Or at least I was like, oh my God, I'm doing such a big thing. Right? While I was just out of college, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing such an important thing where if I do something wrong, he'll lose $1 million, right? That's where he actually gave a big view. And what I try to understand, and then whatever I can, I'll pass it on to the teams where, how much ever big picture we can share. That just, I think, automatically energizes everyone. It's the open conversations that helps. And being very transparent, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's amazing to see all our allies. I thought I'm talking to women in technology, but good to see some of the male colleagues here, our best allies and promoters. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Shruti. She has 20 years of experience, and she currently leads the data management platform at HSBC. She's a proud alum of Chicago Booth, and she is everything data. So I'm very excited to bring her on stage, and happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Harika. So again, an open-ended conversation. So I think what would help is really to keep it as interactive as possible. I don't think I can go on in a monologue really. So yeah, thanks for the intro. And as Shravanti said, started off as a software developer, so from the same platform. Yeah, moved into the data domain. I think it's been 12 years odd now. So more around the data management, not specifically into the data crunchers part of it, where a lot of analytics, go into. Okay, you also put in my presentation, right? So what I was thinking is, maybe I'll just, considering the topic of the day, maybe I'll just delve a little into what I believe, the emphasis or the importance of data management is in today's world, and why has it become so prominent all of a sudden? And I say all of a sudden, I think over the last 10 years, it has, grown like in a large, very, very large scale, 10 to 15 years perhaps. Prior to that, it's not that the problem has never been there. I think in my perception, the problem had begun when we started getting into, technology. So we've got like computers, we've got like digitalization, as a key, factor back in the day, and we started keying in everything. So as long as it is, we have a software copy of it, we are happy. As long as it is digitized, we were happy. We never realized the problem that, okay, we are digitizing so many things. When I want something, where do I pick it up from? Should I go to this particular database, is this my repository, which is the authentic one? For instance, huge banks, they'll end up in like thousands and thousands of applications. Do we really need so many? Are they really discrete in their data? No. So that's how I think we landed up in this large mammoth of data that we have just been accumulating over the years, and now we are figuring out which is the right one to actually pick up from. So I think we have created a problem for ourselves, and now we are investing a lot in sort of digging through and how to make our own lives easier, how to make our own data like more productive and useful essentially. So I think that's all about data. I mean, it's not really a, what do you say, a portfolio that has started, but it is something that we have evolved because we have created a problem for ourselves. Why should we do it? One of the things that I can talk through is I come from a financial organization. I've worked for a long time in financial organizations, and also not in any organization for that matter today, in today's world. Very simple example. Back in the day, we never used to bother giving our telephone numbers or names or numbers to anybody. Now we are so cautious around why should we give, that's because privacy has become so important. And also the consumers have grown, smarter rather, and they can sue any organization for inappropriate use of. So that actually brought in so many regulatory aspects from all over the world. Every region, every a geographical region has their own emphasized, regulatory things, which every organization has to abide with. Failing to which, I think you all might have, read about it. I think a couple of years back, Citibank was fined, I think around 40 million, just because they were not compliant on their data strategy. So in US though. So every organization has its own thing. So one is, why do we need data management? Yes, compliant data, which primarily, driving factor is external. Somebody is going to fine us, so let's keep our, house clean. Streamlined operations, as I said, we don't even know ourselves. So if I want payment data, where do I go? Which is the right thing to actually, that can actually give me the right data. So those are like more streamlined operations for our own self. Most importantly, and many of the organizations which are really looking into the big data is essentially like you're understanding one single copy of it. So you're basically upselling it. I've heard about a weighing machine somewhere, from one of my US colleagues. So you check your weight on your weighing machine, and then the next day, or in fact the following hour or so, his Facebook page was actually showing up how to lose weight. So that's how big data is, right? So we're all connected now. So you don't know from where to what. So that is basic. The beauty of it is, Facebook was, or rather whatever the technologies that were involved in that particular cycle, was able to identify that it's the same person. It's one single person who I can collate my, personal data on, who I can collate about the entire, our universe runs around it. We talks about something today. It says that our phone listens, right? And then Instagram shows up your interest areas. So how is it able to do it? It is able to do it because it understands, okay, the one over there who is talking about, say, the financial, landscape of a particular thing is the same person who is also talking about, some other cosmetic products that she's interested in. And that's how they're able to upsell it, that, okay, these are the interests of this particular individual, so let me upsell my products. So that is nothing but our master data management, for instance, right? So monetizing, basically, that is, I think, most importantly, most of the organizations are interested is only to monetize the data. How would they be able to monetize? They should understand their data better. So if they understand their data better, that means they need proper governance around it. Governance is nothing but people understand what the data is, what are, like Shravanti was just saying some time back, how do I ensure that, things don't go out into wrong hands, things, we don't actually build up unnecessary, rules for ourselves. The one that she was talking about, the 20,000 odd checks that we have put in. That's because, perhaps we haven't followed a pattern. So I don't want to get too bookish around it. Just feel free to stop me wherever, right? So we want some structure for ourselves. We want specific individuals or teams to perform specific tasks. That's nothing but defining our responsibilities, etc. So that's all is all. And we have to involve all the relevant parties together. So if I'm defining something today as a data custodian, but there is somebody else who actually owns the data, who are the actual people who understand and own the customer data, for instance. They need to approve what I'm actually keying in a particular system. So that's how we build our data governance products. I'll not get into too much into, there's so many tools these days available in the market. Oh. What am I doing? I think I went into the all. So I think as I I'll touch base little around the quality aspect of it. So any of the huge organizations, the CEO, there would be certain exec reports that are like most, pivotal for any organization, right? So HSBC, for instance, its annual report, it is publishing that my annual turnover is some X billion. How did you actually get that number in is what governments are digging into. So back in the days, at the end of the day, all data, I think, loves Excels, at least in the past. So there is some report that comes over to the CEO's table. From where did you pick it up? So what are the calculations that you did? N number of columns. So how is this particular number in this particular column had actually turned out? So that is nothing but our lineage. So if you are able to trace back, yes, my report actually says, number X, and this is actually been pulled out, over a series of applications or a series of data flows, and that is the origin of it, and that origin is a trusted source. That actually defines our lineage. Although it is so very simple to say, but I don't think it's a hard task, especially for large organizations, only because we have ended up building up so many silos in ourselves, capturing the same sort of data but through different applications, capturing the same sort of data through different names. So you're perhaps capturing an ID number of an individual, but in one app we call it something else, in another application you call it something else. Do I even know that that particular column in app 1 is the same thing as something else in app 2? So are we able to relate it? So that's all about data lineage. And touch basing around quality. Quality is like, it's so important right now. Even the simplest example around address, for instance, right? So our addresses are like crazy. I know we are like governed by Googles of the world and all, but are we still carrying the same? There's so many, third-party tools which actually sell addresses of people, right? Basically to say that, okay, so how we actually key in the addresses over the time differs. Is it accurate? That itself is a major factor that might influence some of the organizations to a large extent. So it's just a small example, but then quality of the data, if it's not been taken care, and there's so much and so many tools in place, and last month I've attended a Gartner's conference. It was all about how can we use AI to ensure our quality is better, data quality is better. Of course, there was so much of upselling that was happening, so many tools, you name it, there is a tool. And for me, technology is a small part of it. It's like an instrument, you use it any way you want it. But then do you understand what you want to fix with your tool? That is the key, I think, right? So, yeah, I mean, nowadays, touching upon Gen AI, there's so many, Gen AI tools that are in place right now, which can actually go through your, data, profiles your data, tell you that, this is where you're possibly going wrong. How can you actually fix it? Remediation is the next part, right? How can you actually fix it? It gives you suggestions around, fixing those particular things. It also tells you like, okay, I think your data in this particular column is something related to, ID numbers. You possibly have to use these rules to actually remediate or, measure your quality aspect. So it automatically generates your DQ rules as well. So we are evolving a lot in that space. But then the reason I put in this wheel is this is DAMA. There's an organization called DAMA. It's a worldwide data management, related organization. It's a Dharma wheel. It's called a Dharma wheel. So as you see, data governance sits as a core component. So this is where people aspect plays a major role, with a level of automation, of course. But then all these factors, today's topic is more around quality, lineage, primarily, but everything should fall in place so that our overall enterprise-wide data management, can be carried out seamlessly. And of course, I think one of the major gaps that most of the organizations face is we don't have a blueprint of our own organization in terms of what is the type of data that we are dealing with, what is really critical to us. Identifying those factors basically make a difference. That's all. I think a lot of topic around data and data. Any questions or anything that you would like to know?
I'm
Be
raring
more
to
than
go.
happy to answer.
So I think this is very interesting, right? Because this is a key component of a large part of work that we're doing at Cigniti as well, right? Within the data engineering space, right? So a couple of questions, right? One is data governance, of course, plays a key part, is a central part. But what I'm curious about is, compliance comes so much more, an important role to play, especially in fields like finance and healthcare, right? So how do you ensure that compliance does not hinder innovation? How do you ensure your data governance, whether it is a product or a process, can continue to foster innovation in the space of data?
A very interesting question. I don't know the answer really, but I think we have to hit a balance. So in many organizations, as you rightly said, finance and pharmaceutical, for instance, right? We are so worried about the fines that get incurred on us. So the entire, focus goes on how can I avoid it, rather than how do I actually clean up my house. And this is my house ultimately. I need to clean it up. I'm more worried about somebody else coming. What we do when somebody else comes to our house, first we just clean up the living room first. Forget about the bedrooms or anything else. So that's exactly what we are doing. But that should not be the ultimate goal. Yes, we can't really, go away with, the significance that a compliance or a regulatory board brings upon us. But there has to be a balance of both cases. So yes, there has to be a BAU where on a regular mode, I follow certain rules. These are the methodologies I use that has to become the culture. So that's what we usually talk about, data-driven culture and all that, right? So that has to be embedded within the organizations. I can't just give my access to anybody where there could be a lapse of, security of the data. So that has to be embedded in the culture while, so safeguarding our own compliance and the regulatory standards that we do. And sometimes we get to lose the balance and focus more around the external factors, but that's where the key lies, I think.
Right. Well, I understand that the entire wheel is important, right?
Exactly.
Every part has is an important one. But talking specifically about data catalogs, right? Because you talked about we need to know our data, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So with respect to data catalogs, right? What are some of the measures or best practices, if you will, with respect to ensuring that you're able to not just trust the data, but you're also able to trust the metadata that comes with it?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I mean, I think if you ask me, the fundamentals of it starts with metadata. There's like our alphabets to the data. So if you don't understand our metadata well, forget about fixing it. It'll always be a tactical fix here and there. So you understand your blueprints. That's what I was talking about, blueprints. So metadata is nothing but our blueprints. And catalogs will essentially help us to capture them at every level. So if I'm capturing it at a very physical level, techies might understand, not somebody from the business. And so that's the reason, even when you talk about architecture, there's a component called architecture as well. So that actually guides you to define your conceptual data models, which are at a very high level. Only the excos can understand. Okay, something like customer data, my product data, an abstract, a level of abstraction at that level. And then another logical level, we typically are ER models. So someone more, who understands the domain should be able to relate to it, and then should come the final physical layer of things. So if all these things are captured properly into a catalog, the lineage is established halfway. The only other thing that we will have to focus around is how is actually the data getting transformed, the ETL aspects of it. So that nowadays, any tool is able to pull it once you connect to a particular data source. So, but then getting that, the relationships between what you actually have and how is it actually connecting back to something at a business level, that's the trick. So yes, so it all falls into the umbrella of metadata management. So that is, I think, the key to unlock the real value around your data system management or data systems in any organization.
I'll go with the flow, right, with the current trend of Gen AI. So could you shed some light on what are some of the trends or ways in which AI ML is shaping the data landscape, whether it is in terms of products or whether it is in terms of how you're looking at data? So for example, I think what you were talking about, right? Test data generation is one of the ways, you can start to generate data, and that can kind of save costs, it can become more efficient, it can ensure that you are generating data which is contextually similar, right? So while that's just one example, right, I wanted to get some thoughts from you given your experience. Where do you see that shift in the industry happening with respect to AI? And you can talk about either of the products or any life's journey, that you would like to.
Yeah, I mean, I can dig deep into it, but it reminds me of just mentioning about that Gartner's conference, right? So there was one session presented by somebody from Amazon. So his session started and ended like this. So he had a nice big screen. He started off with when you wake up. So you wake up with an alarm, and then you eat, and then you go to work, blah, blah, blah. So everything there is a, some connection with Amazon, starting with your, Alexa. So, everything is connected through Amazon. So the point he was trying to make is we are everywhere, right? But talking about AI is, I think, it depends upon how we use it, for sure. And specifically about data management, again, right? So there's so many use cases. We don't even have to, the creativity of where I can actually plug it in makes a difference. We don't need a tool. There's so many ML-based, open-sourced, APIs that are there. We just have to, grab it and use it in a way that aptly suits us. One of the things that I can maybe, simple example that I can talk through is the metadata that you're talking about, right? It can generate useful metadata for us. Because, over the years, we have built up so many databases, for instance, even the column names do not make sense. So there are no column descriptions in most of our apps. So developers, they don't bother to put in some description on the columns also. So we can make use of AIs to actually generate column descriptions, based on which I can figure out, okay, this column is actually having my email content, and then relate it back to my business data. And then, back to the conceptual side of things, again, the data models, which gives us that end-to-end this thing, right? Relationship, the stitching of the content can happen seamlessly through AI. So that's, in fact, one of the things that we're focusing right now. Nobody knows which column is storing what. So we are trying to understand it, generate useful AI-generated useful descriptions and stitch it up. Similarly, the other example I was quoting, even in data quality aspect, for instance, forget about using AI to actually measure your data quality. It will also tell you, if you use it like in a way, it can also generate the right rules for you. So what are the rules that I really have to put in for this particular column, for instance, right? That can also be like, we can bring it up using AI. So I mean, there's like plethora of use cases. So we have the technology. It's again, right? There has to be some thought put through on what are the immediate or low-hanging fruits that it can bring in, that can bring in value for us, for our business immediately, and then we should start using it.
Thank you so much. I'll invite you because I want to open the floor for questions from the audience.
Products and how you actually sell them, to which customers you sell them. and what goes behind building those data products?
I'll take the generic industry definitions. I think what you're referring to is the kind of data that we can sell, package it and sell together, if that is what you're referring as a data products. Okay, in our organization, we call it data assets for some reason. But anyways, right, so how do we sell it is, again, right, unless you have your metadata, at least, not just metadata, together in shape, your data management in shape, there is no way we can create a product. A simple example I can think of is I want the data of Hong Kong region, payments data of Hong Kong region. So I need to have my metadata, business metadata in place, and then connect to whatever applications that I can pull through that data from. So one of the things that we are currently busy is nothing but, we call it marketplace. It's nothing but it sells products, your data products in the language. So I can search for any sort of data product. It goes and, there is a virtualization layer that we have built in. So it goes and packages it together. And then there is another line that, layer that is embedded, which basically validates whether I'm entitled to get the data or not. So anybody can go and ask for a certain piece of data, but I might not really be the one to actually, access that data. So there is a data sharing agreement that has to be complied on. So there is a layer that happens with that. And then I can, the tool basically provisions the data to me. So whether that when provisioning can happen either, through a JSON, basically through an API, could be any, ways of method. But the key up there is how do I actually call a certain package of data as a data product. I think that's the key. And unless we have our bits and pieces together around this whole, wheel of data, it's difficult for anybody to identify the data product. Of course, even if you identify the data products, we shouldn't be in a position that we have just created data products for the sake of it, and then we start another governance process to clean up, duplications and redundancies and all that. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, thanks for that question. I'd like to.
To add on to it, I think for us, data products, right? I've seen two kinds of clients right now. I'm just like in a big sense, right? One is you want someone very colorful stuff, everything done for you, reports, and the data that I really, really want, right? We're not very happy. That's where the but that's people are asking us. It's the basic. It has become the basic layer. So you asked us how do we sell it. So I think that's where a lot of evolution is happening, at least on our side, where people are asking, what is. We try to enhance a search, right, on our platform. If you go on to, it's basically we always wanted it to be a conversational search, where I would say, okay, what is the competitor for this company in this region, in this market cap, right? And we want people to search like that. Now we have those capabilities. When you're saying, and then there's a second kind where people want to play with the data. They want raw data, APIs. That's what we're asking. Yes, all of what Shruti has said about, how the packaging happens, but then I see like people who wants to be hands-on. Just give the data to your hands, right? They don't want any fancy stuff. Just give the raw data and they'll plug it into their own apps, analyticals, and just build it. That's a big market that is evolving. And then the other sector is, everything is done, but they want the right data to be shown. That's where we have a lot of work to think in terms of the client's shoes and say, okay, this is how they're asking, what they're asking, right? The presentation layer.
Thanks for that question. So that sparks off another, right? I think you were alluding to it earlier as well. So how do you actually evaluate a product market fit, especially in the space of data? Because couple of things are at play, right? One is data is compliant. You can't just share raw data at all the time, right? Sometimes it's also about understanding which customer, which bucket does he fall into, right? The customer may want raw data or may want partial amount of it or may just directly need reports, right? So
And
given
they also
these,
don't want the entire set.
correct, they don't want
They
the
want
entire
a
set.
specific one, and
Absolutely.
we don't have packages to say only this. They don't want to pay for the entire package. Yeah.
So how do you evaluate product market fit when it's especially in the terms of data?
That's how do we evaluate products? One of the things I've seen is we are going with the customer segmentation. The way we, at least I've seen, I got fascinated in the ISB days with the marketing course, and now I see Sai doing that a lot as well. So you look at your customers and then say, you're very focused on the big clients, and then we are like very integrated into their workflows. Right? We work very closely and see how they're using our data, and then seeing, okay, what else can we do? What else should we add on to our collection? If we are missing something, there's a missing market, and obviously it needs a lot of investment resources. We'll have to work on it. So that's, and then there's a lot of colleges, universities who also want to use it. Now, because of all the tools that we have, right, they want quality data. Everything that this is another thing that I learned yesterday. People want the quality data. How do we differentiate? If everything is available online, your tool already knows the Gen AI, ChatGPT already knows, but how do we differentiate, right? That's a constant battle. I think all our products are going to be evolving over time. That's one thing that blew my mind yesterday when I was talking to the folks listening in. You don't want to put your proprietary data out there, but how do you, years of data, right? We sit on a lot of proprietary data that over the years collected data. How do we, and it's very valuable right now. So how do we come out with new products? I think our product teams have a lot of work to do.
I was taking some notes, and this point I just wanted to bring up. Maybe this might be a last question. So in the current landscape, most of the LLMs are trained on large data sets, right? And obviously, outliers and data inclinations are more common in the data set that we have currently. And obviously, data bias is also a crucial factor in that. For organizations like HSBC and S&P do play a crucial role. While given these considerations, how can organizations effectively leverage synthetic data, right, to overcome these kind of outliers and data inclinations, right, while ensuring scalability and maintaining data privacy? Because financial organizations like yours do value data privacy a lot.
T12. So as we spoke just some time back, regulatory compliance is a recent external factor that is actually driving data management programs and stuff nowadays. But then the very crux of it should essentially be keeping the streamlining our own processes aside. I think the value of data management essentially can be picked up when we start monetizing our data. So when we have some commercial aspect of return on our investments, that actually drives our data management programs. So coming back to your questions around what were the challenges in bringing in data governance. So as I mentioned, data governance is more about peoples and processes than the tools and automations that we bring in and the process of making our lives easier. If I can go back sometime to 2012s of the world, people were not even ready to invest into a large-scale data programs back then. Because there was never a, perhaps, understanding around how big can a data problem be or get to. So bringing in in my personal experience, getting people aligned on a common, vision itself is, I think, one of the biggest challenges for any data governance organization to be set up or data governance policies and rules to be set up. Yeah, I think people, as I always say, for any data program, I think the biggest obstacle are people because it's difficult to align them and, because they are driven by various different objectives. So coming down, any enterprise-wide has to happen together. It has to happen across the organization. So bringing in the commonalities perhaps is the major challenge.
To add, to that, I think you touched on the enterprise stuff. We have companies is very key to us. That's where, there's a shell company, let's say. Commodities are one division uses it a different way and another division uses it in a different way. All of us have the baseline, the same stuff, but then there's a lot of layers that we need to build, and we've gone through multiple. Right now, we are also going through another exercise where the governance part, right? We are trying to build enterprise level data network, building the topology, logically building those data catalogs. That is very challenging, right? Trying to understand, it's the same thing. I'm just taking a dumb example of a company name, but in my database, it will say something else. In another division, it's the same thing called in a different one. Another challenge also, I'll say, companies like us who start acquiring companies over time, and it's always a constant challenge to bring the data together, right? It's linking the data. And that's where the value is. We buy, there's a new acquisition, and I was telling Harika, we have the team in Hyderabad today. It's a small company. They do a certain aspect, but very deep collection of data. But when we bring them, there's a lot of conversations that happen on how do we integrate, right? We know it is very profitable. It adds on. It's an enhancement to our existing data. But when we bring it on, how do we bring that governance? How do we link stuff? That's another. It's a thing in itself, right? It's a journey. And when we keep doing these company acquisitions and redesigning, there's something else new comes up. I feel like it's a journey that we are constantly evolving and based on the needs of the day, right? But we are in that journey of building the catalog.
To sum it up, I think bringing in that common element, whether it's common vision, whether it's common topology, there's so many cases that we've seen that everybody is talking about customer. But in your view, customer is referred something else. But in my way, I mean something else as a customer. You both are right. But having a common definition also, is difficult in order. So commonality, I think, is the thing.
Right. It's a scale, right? There's a big effort that we started last year. We want to sometimes, right? In bigger organizations, customers. We have customers for this division. The same customer also buys in another division. But we have a sales team trying to, we're trying to see how we can upsell and cross-sell. And we've started this journey of building that network, building the catalogs, and then we start adding more companies with acquisition. It's a multi-year thing. It's an ongoing thing. I don't want to say it ends next year or 2 years thing. I think it's an evolution. It keeps on adding as and when we need it. Right? There's a new data set. We might have saved because of this AI tools, and we start going into another data set, and that also we'll have to add into the whole network.
Thank you. I think this has been a very engaging conversation, right? And I'm bustling with a lot more questions, but in the interest of time, I think we'll park it for now, and we'll of course keep the conversations going in different modes and mediums. I'll pass it on. Tanya.
Thank you, Harika. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Shravanti, for having such a wonderful question. So, moving forward, her digital story is not just a series of events. We are building a community of practice where you all can come together, connect, collaborate, and grow. The community engagement happens on the LinkedIn page and Instagram and Facebook handles as well. To join the community, please scan the QR code and fill in the form. As we come to the end of today's session, we would like to extend heartfelt gratitude to the speakers for sharing their perspectives and helping us broaden our thought process. And as a token of appreciation, we would now like to hand over a small memento to our speakers. I would request Kiran to please hand over the memento to Shravan. I would request Sairam to hand over the memento to Shruti. Thank you. With that, we conclude today's session. We invite you to continue the conversation over high tea and connect with the speakers as well as Cigniti team for a freewheeling chat and exchange thought. We would also like to invite today's participant to share their thought, feedback, and ideas through a brief video interview. Finally, do stay tuned for the announcement of 6th chapter of herDIGITALstory with another exciting topic, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you, everyone.